Hey guys, so now that the DPS tests are over, my characters are mostly fully leveled and all of that, it's probably time to update the What's Datto's Loadout video series with the first one of Destiny 2. All this video is going to do is talk about what I use depending on what activity I'm doing and why, but if you're looking for something specific, check the description for timestamps. I'll tell you ahead of time that most of my loadouts are optimized for damage and performance. It is very much a min-max situation with me. We'll start with the raid, since it's the one piece of content where your loadout kind of matters, but also doesn't hugely matter at the same time. When I'm in the raid, I bring the following weapons: Better Devils, Ghost Primus, The Number, Legend of Acrius, and Merciless. I used to also bring The End in the energy slot, but I have since switched to The Number. Ever since finding out that auto rifles were actually really good, I've been using The Number in my energy slot. Uriel's Gift is also a very similar energy weapon, and if you want to use that as well, that's totally fine. Better Devils continues to be my kinetic weapon of choice, just a great weapon overall. Nameless Midnight is also good, but the raid isn't too much of a scout rifle activity. Ghost Primus is the raid auto rifle that I usually switch to for Callus specifically, but sometimes I'll use it in other places too, just because. For the most part, my raid experience is Better Devils, The Number, and Legend of Acrius. I know Acrius doesn't really help on the baths, but depending on the order of the encounters and if we're doing the underbelly or not, I'll swap to Merciless for the baths. Acrius is definitely not the best weapon for the beasts either, I know. I just find it insanely fun to use, and if I'm on a Titan or a Warlock, I have Pulse Grenade to help me out, and if I'm on a Hunter, I'm on Gunslinger with a Super. If you want to use something like Sins of the Past, which is the raid rocket for this, feel free because it's very, very good. None of the raid encounters besides Callus are very loadout focused. You can use pretty much whatever you want within reason. When we do go to Callus, I'm on Ghost Primus, The Number, and Merciless. My team does a 2-4 split for Callus. I can probably post a quick video on that strategy sometime very soon. It's not really that different from the original. Our team does a 2-4 split, and I'm in the throne room. Having two auto rifles with a ton of ammo reserves makes it very easy on me to make sure that I will never run out of ammo, not that the fight usually lasts that long. Then I use Merciless in the power slot. Again, there are a lot of options here. It's just what I end up using because I find it the most fun and because my team doesn't really struggle on Callus, at least on normal mode. In terms of armor per character, on Titan, I'm using the raid set with Insurmountable Skullfort when I'm on Striker Titan, which is basically always since pulse grenades are so good, or Mask of the Quiet One for more passive ability regeneration. Insurmountable Skullfort lets me instantly refresh my shoulder charge if I get a kill, and hitting with shoulder charge regenerates some of my grenade energy, so you can see where that relationship is going. Well-timed shoulder charges means lots of grenade energy. Mask of the Quiet One, yeah, I know I'm not really on Sentinel too much, but just getting hit by stuff regens your abilities, and that's kind of nice, even if it's not that much ability energy per hit. Mod-wise, I have 2 arc grenade mods in my chest and my legs, and then otherwise I don't think anything is really mandatory. Kinetic reload is always going to be good. I don't think arc melee is super necessary with the build that I'm running with at all. Class ability isn't too important either, at least as Titan, so you're pretty open here. As a Warlock, I'm rocking a mix of Trials and Raid armor with as many arc grenade mods as we can possibly get. I go with Stormcaller because of Arc Souls. It's just a very nice bonus to have. Although going with a Devour Voidwalker build for the throne room of Callus isn't a bad idea either if you're running into any trouble with that. I typically have been using Lunafaction boots, and I think they're fine to be using for Callus, especially if you're in the Mind's Eye area. But for most other fights, they've never really felt necessary to have. They're just kind of a nice bonus. If I'm not using Lunafactions, I am using Nezarec's Sin, with that helm basically requiring a void energy weapon in order for it to be good. As a Hunter, I'm using one of the subclass exotics, depending on what subclass I am, obviously, Celestial Nighthawk, Raiden Flux, or Orpheus rig. I don't have all of them just yet, but it's what I would be using if I did. Raiden Flux Arcstrider is very valuable in the Callus throne room on a 2-4 split. The only negative is that you don't get to use Celestial Nighthawk. to pop Callus in the face for a ton of instant damage. But if you're struggling in the throne room, it will help you clear out that place, no problem. Orpheus rig is good for defending the plates for all of the door opening encounters if you don't like going through the underbelly. Foe Tracer isn't too bad if you want to try to help seal the deal on Callus a little bit more, getting some extra damage. But I haven't done anything on Foe Tracer versus Nighthawk yet to figure out which one's going to be more valuable. But at this moment, I don't think you can go wrong with either one. Nightfalls are usually a little more intricate depending on what the strike actually is and what the modifiers are, but Nameless Midnight is usually my go-to kinetic weapon because it's just really good and you can play things safe. The special slot is usually driven by the modifier Prism, if it's active or not. If it is active, then I'll usually make my energy slot the Scout Rifle, and the Scout Rifle I use is either the End from Trials or Pleiades Corrector from Future War Cult, and I have enough weapon mods that switching elements isn't too much of a problem if I have to do that. If Prism is not active, then I use the Number as an auto rifle, Sunshot for hand cannon, Last Perdition for pulse, and the End for my Scout Rifle. That pulse rifle pick, Last Perdition, I just like it for the Rampage perk. I haven't played around with pulses in the energy slot too much. There might be something better, and if you like using something different for that slot, go for it. I don't get to use Sunshot as often as I'd like to, partly because you never really want to be super close range in Nightfalls, but mainly because I end up using Wardcliff Coil in the power slot. It is definitely a high-risk weapon due to how stupidly easy it is to explode yourself, but it is just so powerful for killing majors or big groups of enemies very quickly. So I'll use that, or if I know I'm going to need boss damage, I'll use Merciless. If you're wondering why I didn't mention a submachine gun for the Nightfall, it's generally because I don't really use them in the Prestige Nightfall. It's pretty rare that you're getting to fight stuff that closely while still also being very safe. Plus, I don't think there's any 600 RPM submachine guns in the energy slot, and I like 600 RPM submachine guns much more than the 900 RPM ones. It's a shame because swords are really fun too, but they're not so good for bosses. You don't really want to get close to anything in the Prestige Nightfall, but in regular, it's probably more acceptable. PvP loadouts depend on the map. If we're on a smaller map, like Endless Vale, I'm using an Antiope-D or Antiope-D, and the Number or Prosecutor. I'm still trying to figure out which one I like more. Again, Uriel's Gift is still dominant, but if high caliber rounds ever get touched, it's not going to matter as much which gun you pick, and I like the Number for its scope a little bit more and its very similar performance. The Time-Worn Spire has been picking up some steam, the Iron Banner Pulse Rifle. I haven't gotten to play with it much because I only just got it at the very end of Iron Banner. I also played with Nightshade a bunch recently during Iron Banner, trying to bring that back. If we're on a slightly larger map, then I switch to Origin Story and The End. Autos and Scouts are just so good as of this video that I feel like I always need to have at least an auto rifle at all times, a 450 RPM one. I haven't enjoyed the 600 RPM autos for PvP as much as I was hoping for, but maybe I just need a little more practice with them. Pleiades Corrector is also a good scout rifle, as is the Mananan SR4, I believe it is. My power weapon is Legend of Acrius or Wardcliff Coil. Legend of Acrius is just such a fun shotgun to be using, not to mention its ability to get significant collateral damage on other players if they're all stacked up. It is really slow to handle and use, but most of the time that shouldn't be a huge problem. Melee-based supers are already really easy to shut down, alarmingly so, and this just makes it even easier to shut down anything that's coming at you in one shot, guaranteed. Wardcliff Coil is nice for smaller maps where people tend to stack up, because as long as you're at least aiming in the right direction, everything just dies. Sins of the Past is also a very popular rocket pick, and of course, swords have been pretty darn dominant. PvP armor on the Titan, it's usually Syntheseps. As awkward as they might look, they will get you sometimes what feels like completely unfair melee lunge range. They are also subclass neutral, which is great. Otherwise, Mask of the Quiet One is what I use for Sentinel, mainly for the regeneration. I used to use Doomfang Pauldrons, but they're really more super focused, and more often than not, you're getting one super per match, maybe two if you're doing pretty well or pick up some Orbs of Light. I don't think I'm ever getting enough melee kills in a match to make a significant impact on my super energy generation. Otherwise, my armor is an Iron Banner set with Iron Wolf shaders with 8 recovery and 1 recovery mod, so total of 9. Recovery as a stat is super important, so I like stacking it because if you're against someone without a lot of recovery and you get into a fight, well, whoever regens first, if you both back down, is going to be able to hunt the other player much quicker, and that usually results in a kill. Plus, just getting back to the action much faster is a lot more fun, in my opinion. My Warlock is decked in Trials Flawless Armor with Trials shaders basically on everything, again stacking recovery when possible. I'm typically on a Stormcaller or Voidwalker, but my exotic regardless is Nezarec's Sin yet again for the passive ability energy gains. Very nice to have because you don't need to think about it at all, it's just kind of there. But again, you need to be using a Void energy weapon to get any sort of real use out of it. Although, I have yet to get the Karnstein armlets, where melee attacks grant health recovery, melee grenade, and class ability energy, and I know those are pretty darn good. My Hunter is still in development, gonna keep it brief here. I just don't like playing on a Hunter in PvP that much because the recovery is so bad. I do want to talk about recovery, resilience, and mobility in another video, but their recovery right now is just not very good, and it's such an important stat to have, in my opinion. If I am playing on my Hunter, though, I'm enjoying Foe Tracer. I've never really been much for the mobility-based exotics, but Stompies are solid, Knucklehead Radar's good, I see a lot of Dragons, Shadow a lot as well. I don't have enough Hunter experience just yet, though. The next time I do one of these videos, I will have more Hunter experience. For Trials specifically, most of this stays the same, if not all of it. Weaponry stays the same, etc., etc. I think that about wraps it up for my loadouts and whatnot. Feel free to share your own in the comments. Let me know what you guys are using. Maybe I'll try and expand my horizons a little bit. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you next time.